Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents Scents. Hope that you're well. Today we will be determining whether 10 different fragrances deserve their title of masterpieces or if they are in fact masterpieces of shit. That'd be a good title for a video, right? I think that would do great. So yeah, 10 different fragrances, both designer and niche. These are generally considered to be among the best in their field. All of them are gonna be linked in the description. Feel free to check them out down there. And I realize there are a lot of fragrances that aren't going to be included that are masterpieces. Maybe we'll get to those another time. And some of these fragrances you yourself might think, that ain't a masterpiece, but I bet there are other people that think it is. Let's start it off on a very strange and odd note with this Toy Boy from Moschino. So this one is an oddball. It's a very different scent. I mean, you can tell that just by looking at the bottle, right? This interesting little teddy bear fellow with a cap on his head. It's also got some interesting advertising for it as well. Moschino don't care. Moschino's like a honey badger. Don't mess with Moschino, okay? So, like I said, this one's really different. This is a fragrance that is technically marketed towards men, but women could absolutely wear this. It's very floral forward. It's actually one of the few men's fragrances that has magnolia as one of the main notes. And yes, I know fragrance has no gender. A lot of people will say that wear what you want. And I agree, wear what you want, who cares? I'm just talking about it from an advertising perspective, okay? Get off my case, bro. So you also have in here pink pepper, you have pear, you've got rose, clove, cashmere, vetiver, along with that magnolia that I talked about before. It's extremely fresh, actually has really good staying power also, and projects pretty heavily. The price has fluctuated a little bit. It's slightly more expensive than it used to be at discounters, but still not crazy expensive. You can get a 50 mil for about 35 bucks or so. 100 mil like this one, probably gonna be closer to 55, something around there. And when this came out, lots of people were jumping on it, just saying, this is a masterpiece because it's unique, it's different, it's daring, it's complex, it's taking a chance. And for a lot of guys, it's hard to wear. Just talking about your average person, you know, they're gonna smell this and be like, that's a nice lady's fragrance. And then you go, no, bro, that's for you. Dog. So this is like more of a hit with the fragrance community than maybe your average person. Although I do know people that swear by this one and say that they get fantastic reactions wearing it, which is entirely possible because again, it's pretty unique. So is it a masterpiece? That's tough. On one hand, I say yes. On the other hand, I say maybe not as much. Is it something I personally would wear over pretty much everything else I'm gonna talk about? Probably not. To my own personal taste, I kind of prefer the other ones. But does it do things at a high level and does it do things its own way? Absolutely. Next, let's talk about Oud Wood from Tom Ford, which is done by perfumer Richard Herbon, who is a personal friend of mine. He also is the perfumer of one of my fragrances, Edgewater, this one. I was just like pointing. So Edgewater he did, and then I've also got Terra Nova, Jet Black Enigma, West Loop, and South Slope. Those are the 5 fragrances I've creatively directed underneath the Michael Malone brand. And you can find these in every Perfumania store and fragrance outlet store in the country. So stop in, check them out, give them a spray. You can also find them at Nordstrom.com or Michael Malone's website, also linked in the description. Edgewater is a really green fragrance, so it's going to appeal more to people that do enjoy green scents. Be aware of that. Some of the notes are apple, bergamot, cinnamon, grapefruit, cardamom, and peppermint off the top. You've got fig, lavender, petitgrain, saffron in the mid, also sandalwood, heliotrope, patchouli, and cedar as it dries down. There are actually a ton of notes. There are a bunch of ones that I didn't say. But yeah, that's Edgewater. Oud Wood, let's talk this. Massive release, massive. This is still one of the most popular fragrances that Tom Ford has, one of his best-selling fragrances. It has changed over the years. I actually did a video with Richard where he talked about this one, which you can find on my channel. And he talked about how it's been reformulated, how it's been changed. So the original iteration of Oud Wood, which obviously is gonna be really hard to find nowadays and expensive if you do, was better than current Oud Wood, and that's because of IFRA regulations. But Yeah, it has changed. I heard it straight from the creator, so it is what it is. Still yet though, Oud Wood, massively important. It has inspired so many fragrances that came after it. It's a really wearable oud fragrance. It's sexy, it's classy, it's warm, spicy, a little bit sweet. It has a slight edge to the oud, slight, which is why it's still very versatile and wearable. It keeps things reined in. You know, it doesn't go too barnyardy, fecal, funky, or anything like that. So Oud Wood, do I think this is a masterpiece? Absolutely. I think even if you believe that DNA is played out, you have to give it credit for everything that it inspired that came after it. Okay, I'm gonna get this one out of the way. Dior Homme Intense. I have it backwards. There you go. Dior Homme Intense. So what do I mean by get this out of the way? Well, if you've watched the channel for a while, you kind of already know where I stand on this one. This is one of my favorite scent profiles ever. I have multiple bottles. See, I didn't just say multiple once. I said multiple. That means too many. That's how many I got. Discontinue this, don't matter. Got a lifetime supply. Do I think it's worth being called a masterpiece? 2 words. Oh yeah. Yeah, obviously. Smells absolutely amazing. Is it better for formal situations, special occasions? Sure, whatever, it is. But that don't matter. This is one of the best, if not the best, iris forward designer fragrances ever. It has great performance. Yes, it does have kind of like a creamy, makeup-y vibe to it, but it's also a little bit sweet, sexy, so sophisticated and elegant. If this had never dropped, if this did not exist, and a company came out with this fragrance just as it is right here, right? And they released it under a niche fragrance brand, fragrance line for like 350 bucks, nobody would bat an eye. They'd be like, wow, that's amazing quality. The fact that you could, at one point, get this from discounters for like sub 100 bucks, absolutely killer. I said at one point. I've not checked to see what the prices of this are. Let's see. Oh, you can still get it for sub 100 bucks, like 94. Up next, Chanel Allure Homme Sport. We go from Dior to Chanel. Now, when it comes to Chanel and men's fragrances, there are a lot of different ones you could go with. You could go Bleu de Chanel, because that I think would qualify for being a masterpiece, considering how influential that one was and is. You could go Egoiste, you could go Platinum Egoiste, you could go Pour Monsieur, you could go a lot of fragrances, right? The reason I'm going Allure Homme Sport here, actually, why am I going Allure Homme Sport here? I don't know, it's just, I just kind of went for it. It's a good reason. But this is one of the more popular, best-selling men's Chanel fragrances ever. That's really the reason I went for it, because of its sustained popularity. Again, not as popular as Bleu de Chanel, but I didn't want to go Bleu de Chanel. Maybe we'll do that one in another video, okay? Oh no, I know why I went for this one. It's because 2024 is its 20-year anniversary. We'll just go with that, okay? So this one has notes of orange, citrus, aldehydes, which give it kind of an airiness, a freshness when you first spray it on. There's also a neroli in here. There's vanilla, tonka, musk, a touch of woodiness. And of course it smells similar to fragrances like Versace Pour Homme and Missoni Wave, which gets brought up all the time, but Allure Homme Sport does have a bit more heft than those two. It has a little more body as it dries down, which allows this to be used in more situations, more seasons. Because yes, it's technically like a fresh sport fragrance, so people would think of it as like spring, summer, daytime. But you can wear this during the evening. That sweetness as it dries down that comes out does make it a really sexy evening scent. You could also wear this in fall, and I think you can wear it during winter also. Now, is it a masterpiece? It's very influential. It's popular. It's very easy to wear, versatile, all those things. I would not put it on the level of like a Dior Homme Intense, an Oud Wood, or some of the other ones that are coming up. And for this type of fragrance, you know, when it came out 20 years ago, to still be as good as it is today, it's like right on the precipice. For me, maybe I would have it like one step below masterpiece, but I know a lot of people out there, they would think that it is a masterpiece, no doubt. Before we head to the next fragrance, guys, here are some codes you can use to save money across different fragrance shopping websites. And be aware that the JOMASHOP codes only work within the app, and those changed November 18th. Then we have the codes for Max Aroma, the Perfume Box, Beauty House, and many others. So anytime you shop at those sites, use those codes to save some money. All right, next one, Aventus. Kind of had to include this because it's Aventus, but you already know what the drill is when it comes to Aventus. I think if you say this is not a masterpiece, you were just being a hater. Because even if you don't like this one and how it smells, you have to be able to look at how it's changed the entire fragrance industry and how it's influenced things and be like, well, even though it's not for me, obviously it works very well. So for this type of fragrance, is it a masterpiece like this style? I think you have to say yes, or at least I have to. And the first time I smelled Creed Aventus, it was many, many years ago. And it was expensive then. It's more expensive now, frankly, too expensive. But it was still expensive then. And I saved up money to buy a 1 ounce bottle of Aventus, which I still have. It's a little 1 ounce bottle, travel size essentially. And the first time I smelled it, it was mind-blowing to me at the time. It was like I could see sounds, I could taste colors, like everything was just discombobulated in my brain. Do a little reenaction for you. Actually, let me go grab the actual bottle. I actually used to take this bottle with me sometimes when I would go to like a club or a show or something and I would spray it on beforehand. It's a easy travel size. Anyway, back to it. Don't worry, it's carpeted down here. I was dropping it onto a little pad. It's okay. It hits better too, the old one. Jesus. Yeah, different. But Aventus, you can wear it anytime, anywhere, any place, daytime, nighttime. Big compliment puller. It's got that fresh pineapple off the top, a little bit of vanilla, birch as it dries down. Black currant, giving it a tart juxtaposition to that sweet pineapple when you first spray it on. It's inspired countless niche indie designer fragrances, clones, so masterpiece, yes. Le Male up next from Jean Paul Gaultier, the original. Now, of course, this spawned one of the most popular fragrance lines ever. It has so many flankers, just stupid amounts of flankers. And some of those are enormously popular today, like Le Beau Le Parfum, Le Beau Paradise Garden, Le Male Le Parfum, Le Male Elixir, Ultra Male. Those are some of the more popular ones right now, but then we've also had other ones like Eau Fraiche and many flankers that got discontinued, a whole bunch of summertime flankers that they used to do for these, of which I own maybe like 4 or 5 of the summertime specific ones from many years ago. But this is the one that kicked it off. Really well known for that lavender mint vanilla combination. It's a scent profile that, especially at the time that it came out, was not like, you know, hardcore masculine. Instead, it was a little powdery, sweet. You have a touch of spice in there, some florals, a little aromatic feel as well. Now, to my own taste, I would wear one of the more modern releases in the line nowadays, but this one absolutely still works. It was a massive release when it came out, extremely important, which was 95, so almost 30 years ago when this one hit. So I would be very hard pressed to say that it is not a masterpiece, so for me, masterpiece. Let's go Layton next. I got Aventus, might as well do Layton. This is probably, I would say, my go-to Parfums de Marly for fall and winter time. If I, you know, don't think about it, I just grab something, it'd probably be this one. Walks that line between designer and niche, giving you something that's mass appealing, that pretty much everybody's gonna like, but with a higher overall quality. Apple, lavender, geranium, vanilla in here, along with cardamom, a little sandalwood, some pepper, other notes as well. It's a fragrance that sometimes will catch some flack for being like too ubiquitous, too hyped, too popular. And you know, there are some times where I may reach for something else, even if I'm thinking about wearing this one, because I'm like, oh, you know, it is something I've worn a lot. And yeah, it gets talked about a lot. And then I'll go smell it again and I'll go, oh, That is why it gets talked about though. It's one that commands attention. It smells sexy. It was a bit nicer when you could find it discounted pretty heavily, but you know, it is what it is. And truthfully, even going into this video, I was gonna be like, I don't know if it's really a masterpiece, and then I smelled it. So yeah, I think for this type of scent, yeah, I'm gonna have to give it the masterpiece, yeah. It's just so darn good. It's addictive, it's like crack. Let's do Spicebomb next, the original Spicebomb from Viktor&Rolf. Now the question is it a masterpiece? This is one I kind of go back and forth on. I can still remember the first time I smelled it, and at the time, it absolutely blew me away. I thought it was fantastic, which was 12 years ago, so it's been out for a minute. It is very spicy, so it gets the name right. Cinnamon, saffron, pink pepper, paprika, some of the notes that are in here. The issue is, if you call it an issue, as time has gone on, there have been other fragrances that have come out that are either in this line or in this style that a lot of people would say are better than the original, which the most obvious examples would be Bulgarian Man in Black, Spicebomb Extreme. Then there's also a Histoire de Parfum fragrance that smells similar to this. There's an Initio Parfum fragrance that smells similar to this. And then on the mad cheap side, there's a Cremo fragrance that smells similar to this. So it's a lot of different spice bombs. But then at the same time, can you really detract from the original when you had all those ones come out after because of the original? Kind of like Le Male, maybe not quite as much, but you know, similar kind of idea there. And so this is one that I was initially going to say probably no to the masterpiece thing, but similar thoughts with Layton. You know, you go to this type of fragrance and it really helps shake things up. So in its own way, I think it is. Naxos is next from Xerjoff. This is one of the biggest hype beasts from Xerjoff. I have the old style bottle here. Need to get a new style. I just like this one. It's like nicely aged. So this is a tobacco scent. It got compared to Pure Havane from Mugler, or Pure Havane got compared to Naxos, however you want to say that. So it has a nice sweet tobacco, but then there's also lavender in here. So it gives it like this little fresh aromatic feel instead of having it just be all sweet, all tobacco. There's other things going on that make it more interesting. Really, 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 really good for fall and winter time. Has this honeyed kind of aspect that's really addictive. And even though it's kind of a hype beast, like Layton and Aventus, which is gonna make some people go, it's not worth the hype, it's not that good. A lot of times when something is loved by so many people, there's a pretty good reason. And that really goes for all of these, right? When something is loved to the max, it's probably because it's really darn good. And sometimes being really darn good is good enough to be like, yeah, it's a masterpiece, it's darn good. And while this one maybe has not been quite as influential as a lot of these other ones here, it is still one of the better tobacco fragrances that you can get, and it still smells just as good today. So for me, I say yes. And last but not least, La Nuit de l'Homme, the original Eau de Toilette from Yves Saint Laurent. Everyone knows this one. It's really good date night fragrance, good evening fragrance in general. Not super strong as far as the performance goes, but you don't really need that with date night scents. So this has cardamom, lavender, cedar, bergamot as some of the notes in the fragrance. Still smells really good. Very sexy. Nice balance of fresh and sweet. That cardamom really steals the show. It feels like the glory days of the La Nuit de l'Homme and L'Homme line are maybe in the past. Now, I'm not saying they're irrelevant, but when it comes to YSL, more people are talking about why, buying why, wearing why. Same thing with myself. And so it's like lost position within the brand, which is kind of sad, but maybe it'll make a big comeback one day. This one came out 2009, and it's one of those fragrances where if you haven't smelled it for a long time, you'll be like, oh yeah, La Nuit, you know, hype beast, whatever, not that great. But when you go back and smell it again, you remember like, oh yeah. That's another one where when it came out, I remember smelling it and just being like, same thing happened with Dolce & Gabbana's The One when that was brand new. Sprayed it on a tester strip at my local mall and just like, oh my God. And this one has ebbed and flowed over the years. You know, it'll be very popular, not as popular, very popular, not as popular. But I still think that it is one of the best evening fragrances ever. And so for me, it also gonna get the thumbs up. All right, guys, there we go. 10 different masterpiece fragrances and my general thoughts on them. Go figure that if you have a fragrance that a good amount of people think are masterpieces, they're generally pretty good. Imagine there's a majority, an overwhelming majority of people who are like, that fragrance is a masterpiece, and my God, does it suck. It's like, wait, what? Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys.